Hey athletes, I'm Haley Herdman, former D1 basketball player, mental health therapist, and mental performance coach for athletes.
And I'm Naomi Yim, also former D1 basketball player, athlete mentor, and mental health advocate.
And we are the hosts of Mental Training Room. This is the space where athletes get real about the mental side of sport.
Whether you're on the court, field, or just figuring it all out, we've been there.
And we're bringing you the conversations we wish we had as athletes in hopes to help you become mentally elite.
Let's train the mind like we train the body. Welcome to the Mental Training Room.
In the training room today, we have Coach Mike Hopkins. Coach Mike Hopkins is currently an assistant coach for the Phoenix Suns. He started in June 2024, but Coach just has such a rich basketball history. So I want to go through it all and share with everyone basically his basketball resume. And it's a full page long of notes. And it was so, as a basketball junkie, it was just so amazing to reflect on your career and see all of this. So you started out at Mater Dei High School. You won the California State Championship. Then you went on to play Division I at Syracuse University. And a notable game of yours, your senior year, hit free throws to secure the 1992 Big East title, which is just such a big time play. I love that. Like literally gives me the chills being able to say that. And then Coach had a pro career in Netherlands and Turkey. He came back to the States and was an assistant coach for 20 years at Syracuse, won the 2003 national championship, helped lead the team to 16 NCAA tournaments, 4 Final Fours, 5 Elite Eights, and 10 Sweet 16s. And here he coached NBA stars such as Jason Hart and Carmelo Anthony, just to name a few. And you also had such an amazing career with USA basketball. From 1998 to 2001, 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2016. Being a court coach and contributing to multiple gold medal victories, being able to witness the great Kobe Bryant in real life, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Andre Iguodala, who I love, especially with his the work that he does for mental health and sports, Russell Westbrook. And then in 2017, Coach took the job at University of Washington, the Washington Huskies, and you turned that program around with back-to-back 20-win seasons, Pac-12 Coach of the Year in 2018 and 2019, Pac-12 regular season title winners in 2019, led the program to their first NCAA tournament appearance since 2011 in 2019. And here you were able to coach stars such as Matisse Thybulle, Aiden McDaniels, and a bunch more, and producing 5 first-round NBA draft picks. So we just kind of rounded that all out. And most importantly, you are a father, you're a husband, and you're one of my dad's best friends. That's my favorite on your basketball.
I love it. I love it.
So thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This conversation is going to be so great for coaches, for athletes to hear, and also I think parents will kind of get into that a bit more as well. So thank you for being here today.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
Hey athletes, it's Haley Herdman, host of Mental Training Room. Also, mental performance coach and mental health therapist. If you're listening to this, I know you're putting the work into your physical game. But what are you doing for your mental game? That's where I come in. I work with athletes, teams, and parents to build confidence, handle pressure, and develop the mindset it takes to perform at your best and be considered mentally elite. Whether it's through one-on-one coaching, team sessions, or parent workshops, I'm here to help you train the mind like you train your body. Want to work together? Reach out on Instagram at mtr.pod or visit haleyherdman.com to get started.
So before we start the episode and the in-depth questions, we always want to ask our guests, what is something good that has happened to you recently?
Well, my daughter, she came to do her senior year in Phoenix when I went with the Suns, and she had one of the best years of her life. And she's going to Providence College. And so when I say something recently, it's been a kind of a whole last year, but something that is priceless, immeasurable. And, she's awesome. So to see her have success the way that she did and not knowing is one of those sweet things in your life for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We love a girl dad.
I am one.
Okay, cool. Well, just to kind of start off this conversation, I've had nothing compared to your coaching career. I've had 2 years of coaching with my dad, and it was really interesting to just kind of get that perspective on the game. And I started to notice like there's certain factors in players that kind of you feel maybe more connected to when it comes to the sport. And there's always that saying of like, coaches don't play favorites. And yes, there's no favorites in like, oh, I like you the most, I'm going to play you the most, but it's more so like favorites in you. I like your work ethic the most. I like how you show up to practice. I like the work that you're putting in outside of practice and the way that you're talking to your teammates, the leadership. So with your coaching history and all the amazing players that you've had the opportunity to coach and to witness in real life, I kind of want to ask you what were some of the characteristics that make up like your favorite players? Things that players that you felt more connected to, that they had those characteristics that others maybe didn't have?
Great question. I think for me, I wasn't the most talented guy. And so you had to find ways, did you have to be gritty? Did you have to outwork your opponent? There's so many different areas there. I think the biggest thing that I love, and I didn't live by this when I was a student, but it's like, we're teachers. And so, and when you're in the teaching profession, coaching profession, like you love people that want to do everything they can to get help. Like, how can I help myself? Coach, can you help me do this? And then what's, like anything, it's like if you teach somebody a skill of some sort and they just, it's like a child when they get something that they have success in, and they want more of it and they want more of it and they want to spend time with you and they want to do this because like anything, when you learn something or you have a connection, you want more. And I think that's the thing that I love about coaching. When I first started, you talked about the Netherlands and Turkey. I had the worst probably pro career in the history of pro careers. I got fired more times, CBA, I did everything. But the one thing I did is, and why I think I got into coaching is when I was down and out, the coaches that had huge impacts in my life invited me. They said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm laying on the couch watching O.J. Simpson trial every day like a loser eating Doritos on a couch. My career is over." And I think the coolest thing was he's like, "Well, why don't you come down?" It was Marv Marinovich, Todd Marinovich's father. He says, "Why don't you come down? I'm training a bunch of kids. Why don't you come down and train these kids?" And I started working out. And I never thought I would coach. It was a way to make some extra money to stay busy and helping 10-year-old kids. So it was like, okay, everything that I learned, okay, make it fun, do the drills. And these kids were like, "Oh my God." And you're building their confidence. You're doing this, you're doing that. And so when I say, when you ask the question, and I took you, I'm not ADHD, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So at the end of the day, the question was, what do you like in a player? I think the attributes of wanting to be coached, wanting to learn. You talk about Kevin Durant, USA. The first time I met him, he was 30 minutes before every meeting, sitting out with his headphones outside the meeting room, something that he learned when he was at Texas with Rick Barnes and even before that. The players that stay after and are respectful and they want to work. The players that are focused on their craft. I used to, in 2010, you go shoot with Klay Thompson, and he was like in a trance when he shot, and he always said game like, and he was like talking to himself. These unbelievable conversations and focus that were like they were so. I mean, the focus, the attention to detail, and then lastly, the competitive nature in whoever, the players that when you coach, when they're on the court, they're so competitive. All they want to do is, what can I do to help the team win? And so I know I gave you 5 or 6 or 7, or I might have given you 10. I think those attributes are the things that just separate. It's not rocket science. It's the people that want to learn. They're willing to work hard to learn. And as a teacher, those are the great attributes that I like to see.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel like even with those attributes, if it isn't within the sport, like maybe they're not making it to the next level, if it's pro, NBA, WNBA, MLB, whatever it might be, I always see how those attributes, they last longer than the sport as well. So even, I was relating to a lot of things that you were saying that my dad had taught me, and same with Naomi. It's like even though we're not playing anymore, it goes into the work that we do, our careers.
No question. I want to expand on that a little bit. My son is 25. He's doing an internship in New York, and he's with a mentor of mine. And he's asking me questions and this and that. I said, son, I said, you played at Washington, you've gotten to, you became a Division I player. You know what it takes to be successful. Think about it. To get to that level, you had to work hard. You had to take care of your body. You had to get sleep. You were a team player. Like you asked questions. You wanted to learn. You wanted to grow. And like you said, all that stuff, that's the greatest thing about sport. And I think coaching in general is every tool that it takes to get to the highest level. You played Division I basketball. Both of you did. You have what it takes. What the percentages to be a Division I athlete are.
Isn't
And
it
that
like
could be Division
1%?
II, Division III. It could be all these things, but the reality of it is to make it, you have what it takes, and you already have the map. Anyway,
No, and I think that's a lot of the, you can fall back on those things too. So even when Naomi and I were having trouble in our sport, like we always knew that was what
you fell back on.
exactly. And you mentioned Klay Thompson. I don't think I've ever told you this, or maybe my dad has, but this is just like a fun fact, kind of side note. He was working out at the high school near where I live over last summer with the trainer that I'm familiar with. So I was helping them out, like getting them in the gym and stuff. And we played pig against each other, and I literally almost beat him. Like, he was actually so shocked, and he kept saying, "Wow, you have such a great shot!" Like all this.
I tell you what, who your dad was the greatest shooter I ever saw. So at the end of the day, when you said I must be the second best,
Yeah.
with your dad, like I guarantee you, he'd go down there and take a lot of people's money in a game of horse. They wouldn't know what he did. I'm like, oh, you want to play? Okay, let's go play.
It was I had PI, or no, I had PIG, and then he had PI. So to even like get him some letters, I was like, this is the best day of my life. My dad was standing in the corner just smiling, like you could just see how
Proud papa.
so funny. Within those the characteristics that you mentioned, a lot of them are, they don't really have to do exactly with like, oh, they're the best ball handler, they're the best shooter, whatever it might be. So I really want to emphasize like how those are mental skills that you are admiring about these players. Do you feel like, this is kind of like a loaded question, a few questions in one, but do you feel like at the time, like because I know that the mental game and the emphasis on mental performance has evolved a lot throughout your career and the years that you've been around the game. So do you feel like you were kind of able to identify those as mental skills at the time? And if not, this is like the next question is how have you seen the emphasis on mental performance shift throughout the years, and what type of like impact have you seen that have on players and even yourself as a coach?
Well, the first beginning in terms of even understanding the mental side of the game was with Marv Mrnovich, and he literally would have me, I'd have these goggles that had these red little lights, and you put them on and you have the headphones on, and it's supposed to get your mind in a state that's absorbing this information. And it was kind of like, it was the first time I did visualization and the power of that. And I now remember going to Syracuse my first year, and we had a performance specialist, Dr. Tom Clinton, and he had me do it. And I always remember the first time that I did it, I was supposed to be seeing myself making shots, and I saw myself missing shots. And so I think a lot of coaches that had played and had experiences, all that awareness and coaching kind of translates as you move forward to, maybe being aware or understanding what someone might be going through. So, and through this, you learn strategies, right? And you practice awareness, all these things. And so from the beginning, I knew the importance of the mental side. Dr. Clinton used to always talk about, the power of the brain. And, he talked about, when you had dreams and how vivid they were and those different things, and how those can actually, apply to your performance if trained right. But the biggest thing was awareness. And so as I started doing that, I got into, meditation and seeing myself, do good things. But there was also that trial of sitting there and saying, negative self-talk. Like, as much as you trained, it was always this other side coming in and telling you weren't good enough. Or, if I'm seeing myself miss shots, there's got to be a deep place all the way down that's maybe in my toes that I don't even know, that I gotta pull that out and try to and try to solve that. But as I went forward into coaching, I've seen everything. I've seen people that were alphas, where like you couldn't, Jerry McNamara, one of the greatest players that I've coached, he would go and practice he would shoot for 10 minutes and he would be in games. And if he missed 9 shots against Georgetown, he makes 9 threes after that. Like that mental side, if I missed 3 shots, I was done. And it goes back to like everybody has a different level. And so when you're exposed to all of it, you can see it. And I remember reading a lot about, and again, this goes back to I'm at the lowest level of player. And then you go back to the greats and you look at a guy like LeBron James. And a lot of his stuff was documented in a Sports Illustrated article, which talked about like, how they talked about he didn't perform in big games earlier in his career and he went through this stuff. And now you talked about like him doing meditation, reading books before games. He's built strategies that work for him. So if one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player to ever play the game, had dealt with this, I mean, that's the rest of the 99.9% of the world has to be dealing with this at different levels. And that's where it just started being something I love to learn about, studying about. And that's why when I was having breakfast with your father and he mentioned that that's what you were doing, I got so excited. I was like, oh my God, like this stuff is what any parent, regardless if you had an athlete or not, if I could give my children anything, any type of gift, would be how to become mentally tough, how to make decisions on yourself. Don't be disturbed by outside influences. How do you have strategies that when you're having negative self-talk to put yourself back into this focus? So anyway, that's another 20-minute answer, but
that was so good.
There's so many great things in that. And what I think is, because obviously, and I kind of compare it to like the clout that women's sports, specifically women's basketball, is getting now. It's like, oh, they're so good now. Like, no, we've always been around. We've always been good. People are just paying attention to it. Same with the mental game. Is like, it's not like it's a new thing that's been created. Everyone has a mental game. Like you said, the thoughts that we have, like, I forget the exact number, but it's somewhere around like 80,000 thoughts a day that we have subconsciously. And that right there is, even if you're not an athlete, like you still have a mental game. There's a mental aspect to everything. And so now that people are focusing on it more and bringing that awareness, bringing that training to it, it's like, yes, you could work out physically for X amount of hours a day, but if you have a weak mental game, if those negative thoughts are still coming in and you're avoiding it rather than training it, it's not going to do you any good. It's not going to be able to match the work that you're putting in.
And if you're not aware of it and you don't really know about it, a lot of people think something's wrong with you think something's wrong.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And but when you start to realize that probably everybody on the planet deals with it, you're not alone, and it's all about strategies. I remember doing meditation too. So there was the visualization piece, which was great. The meditation piece was focus on your breathing, and you're going to understand that your thoughts, like, whenever you get there, this is your mantra. You're going to say this, and it's supposed to force you to go back to your breathing. And I remember doing it. And, they talk about, your brain is like your heartbeat. It never stops. So I'm sitting there and my mantra, what was it? I'm confident, I'm prepared and ready to lead this team to victory. It was my coaching mantra. When you're dealing in the world of coaching and, high stress, it's like a way to kind of calm down. And I remember doing it and breathing, focus on my breathing, in 4 inhales. And then all of a sudden my mind's like on, on offense. I thought when you really realize that this thing is going bananas, I mean, it's all over the place, but then you can start controlling it almost like a laptop computer that's just going all over the place. So how can you focus in here and give it the right information and how to simplify? And, it's just that awareness was huge for me in terms of my development.
Yeah. And it's so cool to hear that you also, like, you didn't only use it in your athletic career, but as a coach too, because coaches, you're in a high stress environment. Like for players, you have to worry about your role and doing what you have to do. For coaches, is like, you have to make sure every single person on the team is doing their role. You have to make sure the offense is going. You have to, make sure assistant coaches are doing their job. Like there's so many things that the brain has to focus on as a coach. So to hear that that's something that you implement into your coaching style as well is like that, that's just amazing. Like I would love for or coaches to be able to do that, because then it creates, it starts from the top. If you see your coach doing that, it's like, okay, I can do that too. I can implement this visualization. And I also want to say something about the visualization you mentioned when you're like, oh, I was visualizing myself missing shots, which obviously that's, we want to use imagery for the purpose of doing things right, doing things how we want them to go. But it's not like, we're not going to visualize ourselves flying and then we're going to go fly. So it's not these unrealistic things. So in that part, when it comes to imagery, also, you don't want to visualize yourself missing because you want to miss, but visualizing it because then it's like, okay, how am I going to respond? And that's where that imagery also comes into play. Is like, okay, if I miss a shot, what is my reaction going to be? And using visualization to help you through that. Rather than just seeing yourself missing. It's like, no, I'm not seeing myself missing. I'm seeing my response to maybe a setback in a game or practice, or
Well,
coaching. Like, if a play doesn't go right, how am I going to respond to my team? So that's like also a part of
I,
imagery.
I would love to expand on that because I'm reading this book that's incredible, and it's called The Confident Mind. And I was sharing it with you the other day in our conversation. But it goes back to, like, we all deal with stuff. And as a coach, it's like, if your team, like, if you make a mistake, can your team get rid of that quicker than the opposing team? Like, it ends up being a strategy. Like,
Yeah.
can you have that, what's the corny coaching thing? Like, next play, but
Yeah.
like next play mentality. Oh, that's great. It's great code, put it on the wall, but can you practice? Do you have that? Because that goes back to me. Like, if I missed a couple shots, I'd be done. Now, I figured out other ways to keep valuable, so I would be valuable on the court so I didn't get taken out. But mentally, man, I was cooked. And so, that ability as a team, a person, and that's anything in life. That could
Right.
be you're in school and you're taking a test. How do I get to that next one? I just got to get to that next one. So anyway, great stuff.
Yeah.
That's the part I do want to expand on and ask you is for the coaches, how would you recommend them to lead their team in a sense with the mental side? Because I mean, just with my brothers or my family, my parents, they're the head of the household, and it's the same with the coach. They're the head of the locker room. And if they're seeing their coach do those things to meditate and prepare themselves for games, or in a high stress environment, like 2 minutes left in a game, you're down by one, how would you recommend coaches to adopt better habits to show their players?
A great question. In at Washington in my last year, we had a performance specialist,
Mm,
and I sold him. He was at every practice because a lot of times it's like building that trust with that person. It's just someone that's around, someone that they can build trust with. And then he would lead before games. We had him travel with us, and we had, like a lot of people have Bible studies, which are good. And then we had like a 10-minute kind of relax, you get your mind in the right frame of mind, which was a big part of it. And I think offering it, I think when you get into trying to make it mandatory, it's not
right.
as, so you got to want it, and that
Mhm.
goes back to what we talked about, the attributes of players that are doing everything they can to get better. And I think it's just like, I had a friend, a mentor who my son's going to go or intern for. He says, and he's in business, and he says, we do the same thing. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, we sell. I sell. You're in memorabilia doing this, and I'm a basketball coach. He goes, yeah. But if you can't sell, if they don't buy what you're selling, you got no shot. And
Yeah.
so one thing that I used to do as an assistant coach, I didn't do it well as a head coach. As an assistant coach, you get more of an intimate, you're not giving out the minutes, more intimate, more one-on-one, more time, come over to the house, be with my kids, let's make some food. And I would use movies. Like, I would talk about something and then I would use movies. And the movie that it just came to my mind, which I'd watched a ton with certain players, was The Last Samurai. And it's Tom Cruise who's a prisoner of war, and he gets captured by the samurai, and he starts getting acclimated to the village, and the samurai are training, and he starts doing it, and he can't figure it out, and he just keeps getting better and better. And then he's starting to do meditation. So you'll see him, he closes his eyes. And then there's two scenes in the movie where he closes his eyes, and before he does it, there's a whole fight sequence, and then it goes to real life. He was basically saying he was using imagery to doing it. And I always remember he's doing it, and he gets beat. This is early, and one of the coaches, one of the main characters says to him, he says, no mind, too much mind, no mind, like meaning quit thinking, start feeling. And so I don't know. So like, you have to have crazy techniques. I think the LeBron James, like, God, he's doing it. Like, watch him in timeouts. He's got his eyes closed and he's breathing during certain times of the games. And so I think the selling point is, these guys, it's not the message, it's the messenger a lot of times. And so my thing would be is like, got to be from the top down, but maybe a guest speaker or a YouTube video if you can't afford a guest, like all these different things to selling, something that's inspirational, something, like when I was a kid, it was Rocky Balboa, let's watch Rocky 2. Oh my God. And so use things and maybe something in the pop culture for the kids today, or maybe it's a musical song, like there's something that can inspire that person. But that's a great question, because in all areas of your life, as a parent, as a business leader, coach, whatever, trying to get them to use that would be performance times 10 in terms of their life.
And it makes me reflect on like the experience Naomi and I had as well with the like mandated sports psych that we would have as a team. It was more like when you said it's not about the message, it's the messenger, and the way that it was like put on us, and the way that I don't want to speak for like other teammates, but like the way that our coach really like not even encouraged, but like mandated them to go to therapy because they were like the problem. But it was never like this could help you or this could elevate your game. It's more so like, I don't know. But like imagine like if the messenger would have been more like, okay, I'm doing this with you guys, or like just the way that it's sold, like you said, Coach.
You mentioned Kobe Bryant. Imagine if Kobe Bryant came, like you didn't know it, and he comes and he gives you a surprise visit, like he did at Alabama football when that great video. And he comes in, he's like, guys, if I could give you one thing, I'm going to give you the power of being mentally tough and the power of this. And this is what I do. And this is what I do. I guarantee you, every player would walk out of there and go, oh, where do I sign up? What do I do? Yeah. Anyway, I just think we're all selling. And then you got to get them to buy, and it's hard because it goes back to, like I said, everybody has a different level. Some people are afraid. What if something's wrong with me? But I think there needs to be a plan of attack in terms of how you sell it. I was just thinking of another movie with Kevin Costner as the pitcher. Gosh, this is going to kill me. But he gets up and he's talking about, and he goes to pitch, and it's like the first scene, and then everything just becomes everybody becomes like highlighted out, and it's just him and the catcher, and it was just such an unbelievable visual. Like, it's like, oh my God, like, like this is just so good. Like, make it up, because if you could do that,
right,
and so movie making is, there's the music and the sound and the acting. But anyway, I'm rambling.
No, it's very powerful message to be able to use that to connect and portray that theme to your players.
This episode is sponsored by Defend USA, performance and recovery apparel designed for athletes who know that the mental and physical recovery go hand in hand. Defend's graduated compression technology enhances performance by improving circulation, reducing muscle fatigue, and increasing endurance during workouts. Designed for athletes of all levels, it also supports faster recovery by minimizing soreness and promoting better post-training blood flow. Just like we train the mind, we have to take care of the body. And Defend helps you do both. Check them out at dfndusa.com and use code MTR10 for 10% off. Train hard, recover smarter, perform stronger with Defend USA.
So I know that you just talked about Kobe going to Alabama and surprising that team, but you were able to witness him on the USA basketball team. And so we wanted to ask you a little bit on what you witnessed in his leadership and his Mamba mentality on the USA basketball team.
Well, there was, again, one of the greatest moments. I didn't tell Haley what it was, but I had one of my greatest moments ever in basketball. Was in 2010. I was fortunate enough to be one of the coaches with the 2010 World Championship team.
Wow.
Went to Turkey. And so during that time, you met a lot of the players. So on that team, there was Derrick Rose, Kevin Durant. Like, they were young. They were second year NBA. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, Lamar Odom, Rudy Gay, Chauncey Billups. But then I was lucky enough to do the 2012 London Olympics, and we were in Washington, D.C. And what we were like Steve Wojciechowski, who's now with Utah Jazz, myself, Chris Collins before, Jeff Capel. We were like assistants to the assistants. We would do a lot of take players through their workouts, cut up film, do all the different things. And so we're done with practice. My son's there, my my oldest, and I'm sitting on the side. And, Kevin Durant is like, Hop, let's go over to the basket, and let's get some shots. Let's work out. So I go, and he brings LeBron. Now, I didn't know LeBron. That was the first time that I ever, had worked. And so, with Kevin, you're taking him through, he's on the elbows, you're going around, you're getting shots. And during this time, everybody else is kind of shooting and watching. And so we're over there, it's probably 30, 40 minutes, and I'm done. And I go down, and we're done. And it was kind of cool. I'm like, oh my God, LeBron James, And so I go down to the other side, and I just start rebounding and passing the ball. And Andre Iguodala, who was on 2010, I'm like, Iggy, and we're kind of messing around. And all of a sudden I get a tap on my shoulder. And I look back, and he goes, it's Kobe. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's you're around. And he says, do you want to go do some of that mid post stuff that you were doing over there?
Oh my gosh.
You want to go there? And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Bye, Iggy.
So he goes to the elbow, and I pass the ball to him. It's like you're taking him through his thing. And I pass him the ball, and he does the patented,
The shake.
Yeah, shimmy, kind of steps through my groin, and he shoots it. He gets it. I get the rebound. I come back. He does it again. He goes, are you going to play any defense? And I said, you want me to play defense? He goes, yes, I want you to play defense. So literally now I'm in, and I'm foul. Like, I'm hit, like, and he's here, and he's stepping through, and I'm hitting him. And he goes, he starts talking. He says, do you know who I am? He's taught, like, you're in this, he's like in this, you say, Mamba mentality. He's in a lock-in moment. And he starts saying, do you watch YouTube? Do you know who I am? Do you watch YouTube? And he's doing like reverse pit. He's doing every footwork. And so you're studying, you're like, oh my God, I'm like witnessing like a Van Gogh.
Yeah.
And you're just, all I'm doing is talking crap and trying to get, and he goes something. He says, I'm one of the greatest. And I said, I'm one of the greatest defenders in the history of the Big East. It was funny. And then Russell Westbrook, I'd known Russ was like, get in him, wow, get in him. And it just became this thing. And so it was, watching this basketball genius go through, and you're just this small little speck of a rebounder who's trying to play defense that was watching. This is the one thing. When you talk about the mentality, he was watching what the other two supposed best players in the world, Kevin was on his way up. He was watching everything, watching future competition. Oklahoma City at the time was going, and he was like, let's go do that. And then literally it was an hour and a half. They tried to get everything had to stop because he wouldn't leave. And then after, the greatest part of the story was we were done, and there was a bunch of coaches filming it. It was funny because I wasn't able to get a video, but everybody was like, oh my God. I said, can I get a picture with you and my son? And he said, yeah. And it's like a treasure, and those are like, it's like, you have a game, you have this, but then to be able to be in the presence of greatness, like being around Kevin Durant or being around LeBron or being, Carmelo Anthony, geez, I mean, so to see the Mamba mentality was, he was watching, he was studying, he knew everything. It was like being a recruiter walking in the gym. Like, you just knew, okay, who's the guy, who's connected, who's the dad, who's the mom, who's the handler, who's the AAU coach, and you're just scanning it. And then, okay, I got it. So anyway, greatest basketball moment of my life.
Wow.
It sounds like it. That is so surreal. I was just like trying to like paint that picture in my mind of what that would have been like. What a special memory to have. And like you said, it is like you're noticing the parts of that Mamba mentality that make it so special. It's like he's not just focused on one thing. It's everything else that, he's looking at what his teammates are doing, and obviously, teammates. But yeah.
And not only just his competition, but when he was working out, And we started going, and I'm playing, I'm holding, I'm fouling. And he was so locked in. You know, that famous turnaround or a baseline fadeaway on the baseline. I got to do all, like, you know, he worked on every spot that he was isolation. Boy, it was like I came and like his focus, his attention to detail, his competitive nature, he was going to show everybody. He was the last one to leave the damn gym. Like all those things, you know, be the last one to leave, be the first one to arrive. You know, all that stuff was just on display. It was incredible.
And I'm sure he was like probably treating that moment too as if it was like, okay, this is a game winning shot for me, which is what makes him so great is that, and hearing it firsthand from you is like seeing how his training replicated games. And that is an aspect of imagery and mental training as well. It's like, okay, I'm not just going through the motions to get better, to tweak my shot here, work on that move. It's like, no, I'm doing this with intention because I know that I'm going to have this in a game. I know this is going to come down to a last second shot or whatever it might be.
Definitely, you used the word intentionality. It was definitely everything was intentional. There was no wasted motion. There wasn't any wasted time. He did one footwork piece that I was like, you got to be shitting me. Like I was like he did this and he spun all the way around, which made your body move, and then he ripped through. And I was like, oh my God. It was like different stuff.
I love that. Well, in addition to being the successful coach that you are, you're also an amazing father of 3. And to have such a rich career, I'm sure that was tough at times to be able to balance that, you know, moving around and all of that stuff while also being a father, being a husband. So I want to chat about that a little bit of like, what was it like for you to balance those roles when the kids were growing up? And what do you feel like worked well, or what, you know, after it's all like set, obviously the kids are still around, but not as reliant maybe as they have been on you in the past. So what would you maybe have wanted to change, you know, now going through it, and advice to other parents?
Advice to other parents would be, I was really, you know, it's funny and I was sharing this a little bit with you. I like my son, I'm going to give you an example of mistakes. My son is 10. He's playing little league for the first time. I have a friend who played big leagues, and his son did. So he's getting the best training. He's 10. So he was 9. So he could hit, he could field, he could throw the first base. And this was a player pitch. And then if the player, you know, couldn't pitch, then, and my son is ripping ball, like, you know, and then next thing you know, like a traveling coach walks over and says, is that your son? And I said, yeah, it's my son. You know, would he be interested in playing, you know, traveling? Heck yeah. My ego was like, oh, sure, yeah, oh, it's savant. And my son went and, you know, I don't know if you know the difference between 10-year-olds and 15 and under, but it goes from like player pitch to kids actually pitching equivalent to like 70 miles an hour for theirs. And he ended up hating baseball. And I remember like, if I had to do it again, don't be on the fast track. You know, do not be on the fast, like the having the fun, having the spirit, building your confidence at that age, I think is huge. And again, you know, as any parent, right, it was such a compliment. I was like, whoa, wow, oh yeah, you know, and understanding, I just would have done that differently. And then on basketball, like he would go play, and I'd be the guy at half court going, you know, suck it up, play harder. And he looks at me like literally, there was one at the YMCA or Boys Club in Syracuse, and he turns sideways and he goes, shut up. And it is just 10, 11, 12 years old. So, and again, and so we had this thing, you know, I developed with another coach called the Basketball Academy. And I remember it was the whole premise of the academy was, you know, I understood the mistakes I made, and I wanted another coach to teach my son what I want him to teach, but it doesn't have to be me. And have that connection, because I know a lot of people that have been really, really successful. Their kids do not listen to them. Like they do not want to be coached by dad. They want to be hugged and loved by dad. But there are a few exceptions now. You know, there are many, and maybe you guys are the exceptions. But through my experience, that was a tough thing. And if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't speed the process up. I'd let them go, fail at the level, like succeed at the level, and be a kid. And then when you get to 15, you get to the 8th grade or whatever, 9th grade, you're going to high school. And if it starts to become more important for you, or it becomes like I went to Mater Dei and I loved baseball, I loved volleyball, and to be able to play at Mater Dei was I had to give up. I had to play hoop. But at that time, that was my decision because that's what I wanted to do. And so, as a parent, it's very, very tough. As a coach, I think the advice I would give is make your family a part of it. I think when they're a part of it, and that's I felt like I did a really good job. Coach Boeheim was really good at that too. Being around Coach K was a blessing too, because his daughters and wife were always around, and you're a part of it. When there's separation, that's not good. My son's favorite players were the players, and they had favorite players. They were family. We would have events. They felt connected, and I think that's a huge thing. But the coaching thing, the pushing thing, and I used to tell my son, there's nobody in this world that loves you more than me and me and your mom, and want to see you have success. So the intention wasn't in a negative way. The intention was correct. The execution was bad. The messenger,
The mess.
not who he wanted to be, the messenger. The message and the messenger. And so anyway, done right, I think as parents, you always go back, why did I make a mistake and do this? But those would probably be mine. And I have great children, but none of them really loved this. I mean, not love sport. They love the sport. I don't think, oh, your dad's the coach at Washington, you must be a really good player. Well, let him be a kid. He wants to be a kid. He loves the game.
Right.
And then the pressure and all these things, what you talk about, the mental side of it, it's just want to have fun. Basketball and everything, you play your best when you're having fun. You perform better when you're having fun. How can you create that mentally without having the pressure? So anyway, that's just my experience. Everybody has different experience, but that was mine.
Yeah. And I feel like it's even more important now because of the professionalization of youth sports that we're seeing, which can lead, and Naomi, you're kind of in that with your younger brother right now as well. It's like high school basketball isn't the same. It's like there's highlight reels coming up all the time. And if you're not in it, like how is that affecting their mental game? And, kids, now that there's much more of an opportunity for youth athletes, even college athletes, to make money from their sport without even going pro, like I can see how parents would put the extra pressure on their kid to get these brand deals out like in high school as like teenagers, as 10-year-olds, like who knows how that's going to take off from here. So I feel like that's extra important to emphasize and to talk about nowadays with the changes that we're seeing.
I do believe this is and again, I told your dad, I had probably the greatest childhood of all time. My little league baseball coach was Bob Johnson, the Super 12 quarterback coach at Mission Viejo. I grew up with Brett, and I grew up with Rob. Brett and Rob Johnson, Brett Johnson, Brett and Todd Marinovich, number 1, 2 high school quarterbacks in the country during the time. One was my little league coach. One I played basketball with, and went to Mater Dei with. I think, and coaches used to go to a lot of clinics. Coaches, their old 5-star camp, Eastern Invitational. Coaches used to be able to, college coaches, high school coaches, they would go and they would coach and they would learn from the Rick Pitino's and the Brendan Malones and the Mike Fratellos. And, that was an old East Coast thing. But I really believe part of it is the coaching is not as good as the coaching that we had. We had great teachers. We had great coaches. And I think, it all trickles down, like where do you go now to get coaching training? Like, where do you go? Like most coaches back in the day, like the John Woodens, the Jim Boeheims, you had to get your teaching credential. To be able to coach in college, you had to have your master's. And a lot of guys had it in education, sports psychology. I can go back so many great coaches during my time, man. Not coaches that just won, but coaches that impacted people's lives. Well, I'm not saying coaching like, I had a 92% winning percentage. I'm not talking about that. Like, people that actually impacted like communities, people that impacted like a generation of kids. So, anyway, I know I'm rambling, but that's something that I believe.
Yeah, that is so important. And I didn't know that was a requirement to like have your teaching credential.
Back in the day, to be a college basketball coach, you had to have your master's.
Let's bring that back.
I just, you know what it is? It's just an extra layer.
Yeah.
Education, even like learning. Maybe you're not a master at sports psychology, but you get the gist, and you're dealing with different types of personalities. And especially now, it's more important. It's, anyway.
Okay, so our last question to you is just advice to your younger self, and whether that is to your younger athlete self or your coach self or father self, what would that be?
You have to be able to learn how to advocate for yourself. A lot of times, you just kind of go with the flow. And I said earlier, if I had to do it again, the mindset piece of being mentally tough. And mentally tough means a lot of things. For me, it would be, learn strategies for if you have negative self-talk. Be able to have strategies. My mom in Little League Baseball used to say, take 3 deep breaths, learn how to breathe, learn how to relax. I had a lot of fun. So that's something that was just, I was lucky to have. And I had friends and families and parents of friends that were just incredible. But the most important thing is to that mental side, to really believe, and if you can believe and you can have that mental toughness, regardless of anything in your life, and you have that confidence, now you just learn to advocate for yourself and be a life learner. And I don't think there's anything that you cannot accomplish. Yeah. I think people, even with the major talent, they don't accomplish things because it's the mental side, it's the question side. They don't have the foundation. They don't have the strength built. Just like anything, just like ours, what's the foundation? If it's a strong foundation, you always have that to hang on and to hold your ground through tough times, because this life is going to knock your ass out. It's going to punch you. It's going to knock you down, and the wind's going to come. The waves are going to come. Like, what's going to hold you without foundation, and know that you can hold strong and you're going to get through it and you can go forward. And to me, what you guys are doing, that mental side, is everything. Learn how to meditate, learn how to have great self-talk, learn how to do great imagery, to go to bed at night and see yourself being successful, not like, oh, I'm a loser, and how, oh my God, I was on TikTok and I can't, do that, or I can't do this, or I'm not that beautiful, or I'm not doing this. That's all bull crap. So I know I gave you that's the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P answer. I know you wanted to nail me. You're going like this. My man is going too long. This is unbelievable.
That's how my mind thinks as well. So
yeah, but anyway, that's a long answer, but it goes back to the mind, mental toughness, confident thinking, confident life, advocate for yourself, speak up for yourself. Anyway.
And that's what exists beyond the game. So I love how it wasn't even, it wasn't things that have to do specifically with basketball or with your career. It's something that you can implement as an athlete, as a coach, as a dad, as a human. You can advocate for yourself. You can focus on that mental part in any aspect of life. I think that's really, really powerful. So thank you for everything that you shared with us today. And I was ready for you to ask me a question. You said you were going to.
You know what? I was, but I'm not prepared. You guys are all prepared. You guys are so good. But what I will say at the end is I love, like if you ask your dad, I got lit up when he told me what you're doing. And that's what I was so excited. He goes, she does a podcast, you should get on. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I don't know if I've ever done a podcast before, and I'm just excited.
Honored to be the first.
What the biggest thing is like, what you're doing, and like the conversation is you can impact people's lives for the better.
Right.
You guys perform. You have the secret sauce, and now you need to learn how to really sell it, baby. Let's go.
Exactly. Well, thank you again.
That's it for today in the mental training room.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at mtr.pod to stay up to date with all things mental training.